Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. He was born on 2nd October 1869 at Porbandar, which is presently a district in Indian state of Gujarat. His father was the Diwan, can be said as Chief Minister of Porbandar, and his mother was deeply devoted with religious practice of Vaishnavism. At the age of 19, Mohandas left the home to study law in London at Inner Temple, which is one of the city's 4 law colleges. Upon returning to India in mid-1891, he set up a law practice in Bombay. But he only met with little success, so he soon accepted a position with an Indian firm that sent him to its office in South Africa. Mohandas Gandhi arrived in South Africa in 1893 as legal representative of Indian traders in Durban. There he faced the prevalent discrimination against the people of color in South Africa, and he there decided to take up fight against racial oppression. During that time, the National Assembly was about to pass a law disqualifying voters who were not European origin, and Gandhi became the leader of Indian community to oppose that bill. Though he is temporarily delayed due to his efforts, the bill was ultimately passed in 1896. The Natal Indian Congress, found in opposition to the bill, made the Indian community in South Africa a unified force. What Gandhiji achieved in his life was a miracle. He lived in the heart of millions of Indians and was respected by all. He laid great emphasis on banishing untouchability, promoting Hindu-Muslim unity, promoting literacy, and in the development of great nation India. He moved the people with his sincerity and sacrifice. The main reason why people are inspired by Gandhiji is his philosophy of non-violence. He used non-violence to free India from British. His manner of trashing shows us his unwillingness to use foreign products. He always told the people to do their work on their own without depending on others. He tried to eradicate the evil existing at that time, that was untouchability. Gandhiji was also known as Father of the Nation, and for the students, they like to call him Bapu. He is the inspiration for millions of people, not only during the freedom movement, but even today. He used tools like Upavas, Satyagraha, Ahimsa, and non-cooperation to achieve his goal. His most enduring qualities were his insistence to always tell the truth and his disciplined way of. We as a group also believe the people of India were inspired to follow Gandhiji because he never claimed to be a god or superhuman. He admitted his mistakes and never blamed anyone. He was just another simple Indian, and his methods could be easily understood by both the education and the poor. His humility and depth of understanding in simplest of actions has made him the Mahatma. Gandhiji believed in non-violence and peace. He was a freedom fighter but differed from other freedom fighters because of his determination. He never gave up and he never lost hope. Even when his struggle met with failure, he didn't let go of his belief in non-violence. And this made him Mahatma again, because he never promoted violence in any other form. Gandhiji's truthfulness inspired us the most. He was human like us, but he tried to overcome his weakness and succeeded in it. Liberating the country was his true desire, not for any other motive or self-interest. Unlike today's politicians, he didn't have dual personality. He didn't crave publicity. People who came in contact with him felt his positive energy. The person who freed our nation, India, without even a thought of violence is our Mahatma Gandhi. He was an intellectual and turned negative things to positive. I am inspired by his sense of sacrifice. He experienced joy in giving and uplifting the masses. Mahatma Gandhi is considered one of the greatest leaders that the world has ever seen. His successful application of non-violent methods of protest has proved to be highly influential for numerous movements since then. He proved to be an inspirational figure for several important world leaders, including Martin Luther King, leader of African American civil rights movements, and Nelson Mandela. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the most prominent leaders of Indian independence movement, and he is unofficially referred to as father of nation in India. India gained its independence on 15th of August 1947, but it was accompanied by partition of British India into sovereign states of India and Pakistan. This led to widespread riots in the regions in which an estimated 2 lakh to 20 lakh people were killed. Mahatma Gandhi appealed to all for peace in Calcutta, where he was present. He took a fast at the age of 77, which ameliorated the situation in the region. Without his presence, there could have perhaps been an even more bloodshed during the war. He launched the Quit India movement in 1942, demanding the end of British rule. After the World War II started, Gandhi declared that India could not be party to a war being supposedly fought for democratic freedom, while that freedom was denied to India itself. He launched the Quit India movement on 8th of August 1942, where he demanded an ending of British rule in India. He made a call to do or die in his Quit India speech. Almost the entire leadership of Indian National Congress was imprisoned without trial within hours of his speech. Despite lack of leadership, large protests and demonstrations were held over the country. The Britishers made over 1 lakh arrests and hundreds were killed. Thought Quit India movement was successfully suppressed by the British. They realized it was now impossible to rule in India. At the end of Second World War, British indicated that power would soon be transferred to India. Gandhi called off the struggle and around 1 lakh political prisoners were released. There are many satyagrahas and revolts which were led by Mahatma Gandhi in his life, and now we will talk about many of such revolts. One of the successfully led non-violent tax revolt was in Kheda. Kheda is a district in Gujarat in India which was hit by flood and famine, leading to crop yields being less than a fourth. Aided by the Home Minister of India, the future Home Minister of India, Vallabhbhai Patel, Mahatma Gandhi initiated a campaign where peasants pledged non-payment of revenue, though the government threatened to confiscate their land and warned that seized property wouldn't be returned. Even with their property being seized by the British government, majority of the farmers stood behind Patel and Gandhi. After 5 months, in May 1918, the government suspended the tax for that year and the next. The increase in rate was reduced and all confiscated property were returned. Mahatma Gandhi even led the famous Salt March to Dandi. The Dandi, which is situated in my hometown. As a team member, I had been very close to Dandi and I visited all of those memorials which Mahatma Gandhi had been and led the Salt March. So as I am very close to the Dandi and it's in my hometown, I would like to say about how it all began. The British Salt Act was of 1882 prohibited Indians from collecting or selling salt and also imposed a heavy tax on it. In 1930, for 24 days from 12th March to 6th April, Mahatma Gandhi marched 388 kilometers from Ahmedabad to Dandi in Gujarat to produce salt from seawater, as was the practice of social populace until the British Salt Act. Thousands of Indians joined him in this famous salt march or Dandi march. It sparked large-scale riots, civil disobedience against British salt laws by millions of Indians, leading to 80,000 being jailed. Though it didn't lead to any concessions, Salt March was extensively covered by the media and the world began to recognize the legitimacy of Indian claim for independence. The march to Dandi would later influence several activists including Mahatma including Martin Luther King Jr. Gandhiji forged India's independence from British rule in 1947 by staging massive peaceful demonstrations against poverty and the fight for women's rights and religious tolerance. Despite his death, Gandhi has become immortalized in our psyche as a hero of human rights and synonymous with the act of peaceful protest. He continues to inspire non-violent human rights movements all around the world and has influenced the leadership of contemporary heavyweights like Nelson Mandela, Cesar Chavez, the Dalai Lama and Aung San Suu Kyi. In honor of Gandhi's legacy, we look at some surprising facts about his personal career, life and politics. As per our research, we also found that Gandhiji was not the best student. Although he was known for being highly ethical with good English skills, he was considered a mediocre student in math and poor in geography. He also had bad handwriting, which he was embarrassed about. Gandhi was a newlywed teenage. Gandhi was a teenage newlywed. He was only 13 years old when he married his 14-year-old bride Kasturba in 1882. The young couple weren't too fond of each other but later found common ground. The death of their first child made him a strong opponent of child marriage. With all the betterments, he also had some of the drawbacks and some of the failures and even some of the mistakes he did. One of them was passed on Luther death, which was started from January 1948. India was an independent nation way back in January 1948, an independent dominant in the British Commonwealth of Nations. With the promulgation of the Constitution of India in January 1950, it transformed into a Republic of India. As a new nation, it was fighting wars at multiple fronts. War with poverty, illiteracy, food shortage, communal tension, and many more. Around the same time, it was also fighting a conventional war with Pakistan and state of Jammu and Kashmir. State of Jammu and Kashmir was one of the princely states which decided to remain independent after British announced their plans to leave India. It was the only when the state faced an uprising in the western part by the local tribal militaries. Maharaja Hari Singh decided to join India. The instrument of accession was signed on 26 October 1947. Indian troops were then immediately airlifted to Srinagar to support the state forces. The war was inconclusive with a formal cease. Fire came in effect on 1st January 1948 after the India's Prime Minister Nehru approached the United Nations. Also, there are many of his mistakes which were tragic were Khilafat agitation, which was in 1920 to 1922, and there was another mass agitation for complete independence in 1931. There were many of the mistakes which cannot be neglected. While Gandhiji failed to take the Khilafat movement seriously, whether at the level of principle or of practical politics, and substituted his own imagined and idealized reading the Khilafat doctrine for reality. So this was the one mistake he did, and he had a huge impact on his own life, and he realized what the Khilafatism is. Gandhi made the mistake of hubris by thinking he could reconcile Khilafatism and Indian nationalism, and he also offended his Muslim allies by calling off the agitation when it turned violent. The result was even more violence, and with massive Hindu-Muslim riots replacing the limited intensities of anti-British attacks, just as many level-headed freedom fighters had predicted. Gandhiji's speech moved millions of hearts and never failed to motivate their freedom fighters. In one of his speech, he was like, a satyagrahi, whether free or in care created, is ever victorious. He is vanquished only when he forsakes truth and non-violence and turns a deaf ear to the inner voice. And if, therefore, there is such a thing as a defeat for even a satyagrahi, he alone is the cause of it. Such was the passion and conviction that resonated in his voice and was amplified through by his 80 marchers who joined him in 24 days non-violent civil disobedience protest. Me and my group, as we all the team members are Indians and we call him a Bapu, we are very firm and we are very well motivated and inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, and all of his things, all of his sacrifices which he did for our country are never forgettable, and yes, he will always be immortal for us and for our nation.